Welcome, I'm Rick DiClemente. This is Star Self and Astrology Unplugged. Nice to have you with us. Thank you for coming across from YouTube. For thank you for joining us directly. I'll just start out with the good news tonight and get it over with flat out. I am now cancer free.
Yay!
Yay!
Yay.
That's
You
awesome.
know, I've been through all that stuff and no more cancer, and
That's awesome.
Oh,
just very, very happy. And thank you all for
yeah.
your support very much.
Oh,
Tonight,
we
we're going to talk about the rising sign. And I'm not really an expert on the rising sign. So I've invited uh, Claudia and Rick to chip in with what they know about rising sign because it's not a simple thing. And I'll do the preface to it, and they will be doing the rest of it. Um, As you know, in astrology, you hear these terms all the time. You can be a double Capricorn, a triple Capricorn. What that means is, where's your sun, where's your moon, where's your rising sign? And if you are born at sunrise with a new moon, where the sun and moon are together, if you're born at sunrise with a new moon together, then you would be a triple. So, a rising sign is commonly known as your rising sign or your ascendant. I'll show you in my chart. I'll be using as an example for you. Okay, I'm using my chart just as an example tonight. Now, the ascendant is right here, and it goes over, and this is called the descendant, the ascendant, the descendant. And all that means is the moment you are born, if you run outside and point to the east, in astrology, this is the east and this is the west. So it's a little confusing. If you point to the east, what sign is rising? What sign? These signs go once around per day. So every sign comes up and rises for about 2 hours per day, and that gives you your 24 hours. So this is your ascendant, this is the descendant, this is the midheaven, this is the nadir, Nadir. Nadir means the bottom, and the midheaven means the top or the heavens. So if I were born, see, I'm born at 8:10. So I'm born near sunrise, and that's why I've always had the same sun sign as the same rising sign. And that's one reason I have not delved into learning much more about it. I've seen millions of them, of course. Now, for example, um, if I'm born 2 hours later, okay, now 2 hours later, you see now my sun is still in Capricorn, but now the rising sign is Aquarius. Okay. So every 2 hours, this sign, the next sign up, the next sign up, the next sign up. So if I'm born near noon, so we see that the sun is near the top of the chart, and now Aries is rising. So the rising sign is nothing more than what sign is here. The planets rotate through the zodiac counterclockwise. No, they rotate through the zodiac clockwise. The signs come up counterclockwise. That's correct. So from the rising sign is determined where your second house is, where your third house is, where your fourth house is, where your fifth house is, etc. And those are called that way because of whatever house system you're using. And there are many different, there are about 20 different house systems. I use the one called Placidus. These are a lot of those are named after old time scientists, old time physicians, old time physicists, I should say. So your rising sign has a lot to do with your first house. It's the beginning of your first house. It's always in the 9 o'clock position for everybody. It's always the beginning of the first house for everybody. And the rising sign has a lot to do with how you see the world. It's like a window, how the world sees you, how you see the world. And a lot of times people will look like the sign is rising, not like their sun sign. So that's one of the clues that you can use. Now, I don't know a lot about experience with the rising sign because I've just always had the same as my sun sign. So that's the reason why. And that's the reason we're chipping in tonight with Claudia and Rick to talk about the rising sign for them. Okay, now the rising sign in some cultures, in some circles of astrologers, they take it very seriously. Sometimes they take it more seriously than the sun sign. I don't find that to be true. But you are encouraged to find out what yours is, to find out what everybody is around you, and to study as much as you can to know about it, and to differentiate, such as being a Scorpio with Gemini rising, and those two are very different, or being a Gemini with Scorpio rising. There's always a theme of seriousness and lightheartedness following the Scorpio and following the Gemini. So I'm going to turn it over to these two here in just a second. And if you have any questions, we'll follow up with you about it. But the rising sign is the sign to the 9 o'clock position of your chart, or to your left hand, which is the east. It's not the west. That's the east. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hope that we don't lose Claudia because she has a very big storm heading right for the center part of Georgia. And we hope that she stays with us all evening. If not, I will go get that back. Welcome, Claudia and Rick, and thank you, and welcome, Catherine, and welcome, Erica, and welcome. Thank you for taking over the helm here. Hold on, please. Let's get this started. Okay. Claudia, you're now the host.
Well, it's fascinating that you just said thank you for taking over the helm, because that is something that they can call the rising sign, the ascendant. Helm
No.
is, yeah, and I've heard that before, and then I read it again today. And it comes from really ancient astrology, which I find I'm very ironically, I'm with two Ricks who both are a double their sign. So Rick D is a double Capricorn and Rick C is a double Leo. And so they experience it in their unique way. And I kind of want to hear how they experience it. Even it's because everybody's got a unique experience, even if it is double. I find it extremely important in my chart, and maybe you do too. I don't know, everyone is different, but then again, we'll get into it.
What's your
It's a very,
rising sign? What's your rising sign?
it's Taurus.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So like Rick was saying, it is calculated by the time of birth, but it's also calculated in space as well. So if you were born in Cincinnati at 4:10 a.m. and your cousin was in at the same time, but she was in Portugal, that'd be a different rising sign, very likely. So it is a very personal point. It's a very personal point. So if you think about, it's very obvious. It's about you, and people say it all the time. Yes, it's about you. The first house is you, but you really need to know that that is the only house that is really you. So when Claudia talks to you, and it's not the spirit of Claudia and some aberration, it's actually my body that is here in this physical reality. And I go on about it because I think it's just such a key point, and it's the beginning. It's the beginning. I always explain it to people. Um, if I was going to go visit Rick right now and he's in Pittsburgh, I'm in Atlanta. What if I started my trip in Alaska? That'd be a very different trip. That's what I think is, it begins the story. It begins an aspect of your story. So I find it, maybe that's why I was the one like, can we do a show on the ascendant? Because I resonate with mine a lot. Now, it happens to be that I'll tell you about that in a minute. Um, so it's associated with the body, and it's associated with the character, with your character, not your soul, but the character that you other people may see you as. And it's not that it's false. There, I did find two good quotes that I want to read to you by Stephen Arroyo today. It's the outer expression that best serves the inner need. And nothing is accidental, right? So I've had people argue with me. I had this woman one time just say, yeah, but I was supposed to be born at so and so time. So I think you should do that. And she went on and on, like, no, that's not how God works. That's not how life works. You were born at the time you were born.
It
And
is the
on the day
time you took
before.
your first breath.
Yes, it's
That cannot change.
right. And it's so on purpose. And the other quote is, we both hide behind the ascendant and express ourselves through it. So it's both. And it's again, it's not that the mask is a devious bad mask. It's just that, oftentimes people don't see me as a Leo. The people that know me better, they kind of can see the Leo, but they always say I'm pretty calm, really nice, and really calm. So I I have a Taurus rising. It's a very different energy than Leo. And in some cases, I can see some similarities, but it happens to be, this is kind of where I always begin when I'm just going to show you this just for this example. So if you, are you seeing my screen?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, my chart. Okay. So, like Rick was saying, this is it right here at the 9 o'clock position. So immediately I think Venus. Whenever I see anybody's chart, that's the first thing I look at, to be honest. I don't even look at the sun a lot of times, and I have to kind of force myself to go look at the sun. But everyone's different. It's not that one is better than the other.
You look at Venus.
I look at Venus.
Ah.
Exactly. So it
It's
happens.
also, if I can share why you already stated this, Venus as the chart ruler is also linked with the terminology of
Yeah,
the
the,
helm.
the planet that rules the ascendant, the planet that rules the ascendant, and Venus rules Taurus, is the ruler of the entire chart. So it is a big deal.
Yeah.
Your ascendant, whatever your ascendant is ruled by, is the ruler of the chart.
And then even when you have a progression and you progress the ascendant, you're still going to have to remember how important Venus is once it goes into Gemini.
That's right.
And then it just, exactly. And it happens to be that it is in the second house, which is the natural house for Taurus. So no wonder I resonate with this be this ascendant thing because it really I have felt it strongly, even when I was not really aware of astrology at all. But then we have to consider that there's a planet right next to it. Sorry, this thing is hard to do. So the reason I wanted to bring up that example is because that's a typical example of somebody that I mean, I resonate with my rising sign a lot. That is going to be different for you. And one thing that I really want to point out is I was thinking about this today and I was talking to Rick C. And I told him, think about the word ascendant. You're ascending, you are rising, and your soul is rising, your body and yourself is rising to the occasion of being in this human meat suit. So it is really important because I think as we evolve and we grow spiritually, we mature, the way that I experience my Taurusness is going to be different now than it was when I was 15, when I was having transits when in my progress chart and all that. So at this point in my life, I feel it very differently than I did when I was 12. And I had an astrologer say to me, one of the very first readings I got, she said to me, relationships are really important to you. And I thought, well, yeah, aren't they important to everybody? I mean, it's such a human basic thing. But they she was right, and because she was probably thinking Venus. But something else I wanted to point out about the ascendant, the word ascendant, is that, and I haven't played around with this too much, but again, I did look at my chart and I thought that it made sense. So I've heard it talked about. Whatever your mother and whatever was happening through your birth time, that can be very indicative in your chart as well. So the sign before Taurus is Aries, right? In my chart, it would be the Aries sign. And I think I've probably told you all before, I'm not sure, but I was actually, my mom thought, everybody thought I was going to come out. Pick up, pick up the phone.
What did you say, Claudia? I didn't hear that.
Nothing, somebody's phone rang.
No, I
They
mean
thought,
about what happened when you were born.
oh, they thought I was going to come out dead.
Mm.
My God.
Yes. And guess what I have in my 12th house?
What?
Chiron in Aries.
Chiron.
Yeah. So
Wow.
apparently my mother had had a lot of problems, a lot of problems. And they had packed her full of medication that was so strong, they thought, we have to save the mother. And so they did. And they kind, I don't know the technology in 1974, but they kind of assumed that I was either not going to be okay or was going to be dead.
Good thing you're a strong Leo with Taurus rising, or you might not have been alive.
I know. But that is crazy because I just kind of figured that out not that long ago. But I truly have heard it talked about that the experience of being born can be very traumatic, right? But it is no accident that your rising sign is your rising sign, and the degree is also really key. And so are
Right.
the planets that are going to be near or aspecting your chart ruler.
Then you also look at the fact that you are a Leo, which is a fixed sign, and Taurus rising is also a fixed sign. So you've got a double fixed meaning to your nativity. So
Mm-hmm.
that can really mean a lot. Um, Where
Yeah.
it becomes intriguing is when they're completely different, like Gemini and Scorpio, and you get
Yes.
a really lot of change. You get a lot of variety that way. But the rising sign needs to be taken very seriously at every chart that you look at.
Every chart
Absolutely.
that is, I mean, I have so many examples of, I know an Aries rising, and where is his Mars?
Mars.
It's in the 12th house, and it squares his Pluto, I mean, his Neptune. This person is, I always thought this person was really, really trying to keep his anger down. Like he was not expressing this uh there was something about anger with him, and I couldn't put my finger on it. But I still can't. But the point I'm trying to make is the rising sign, the planet that rules the rising sign can change it. So I'm not can change it, but can give that flavor. I once
Color,
made a,
Yes.
colors it.
Yeah.
it colors it so much so that my son, my child, uh, he's a Capricorn rising, but he's got a lot of planets in Gemini. But his Saturn, which rules his chart, is next to his sun. And I always find that there's a there's a there's a an apprehension to his Gemini. Like he doesn't want to let his Gemini out, is what I'm trying to say. Uh, so the planets that are near, squaring, trining, anything that's happening to that chart ruler, I think is so key. Um, there might be did you see the questions in your
I
message?
did.
Okay, maybe this would be a good time to ask one of those. Um, so I kind of,
Also, if you want, I can throw out a little bit of a thought just
please.
on my own experience because um, Rick has noted that I am not the typical Leo, but
Mm-hmm.
if you want to throw up my chart
Yep,
using
I'm
this
getting it ready.
information you pulled in already, you'll see that my sun being in the 12th house hides a lot of the external ego, first off.
Yep.
And it also, um, I think, because that 12th house energy accentuates the Neptune experience, because I have that Piscean flavor
Right, right, right.
to my expression of my soul. Sun is expression of soul. Ascended is the cover, the mask, or let us say part of the identity, because it rules the face and the head. So as face and head, your mind is certainly going to be part of that. And I think that is where a lot of that connection to Neptune is elevated into my
Yeah.
experience.
And
Makes it a lot easier.
if I didn't know you, I would ask you, how do you experience your son in such a backstage house? But I do know you, and you have spiritualized it. Uh, and I mean, you can feel that.
I have stepped into spaces in silence thinking, okay, even though I'm going to get into the middle of things, I'm going to feel like a wallflower because that's comfortable. And I've been told, you walked in the room and everybody was paying attention to you. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, I never felt that. I didn't try to do that. You know,
Right.
there is, but that sun ascendant, I think that has something to do with it when they're
Mm-hmm.
so close together. because my energy does come forward rather strongly. I have been thought to be expressing things very vibrantly when I'm just using a monotone regular voice.
Right, right.
The word choices end up speaking for me.
You
And
can't help it.
no, no.
It that's one thing that I was reading about a while ago. It's that it's not that it's a subconscious urge. It's an automatic thing that you just
Right.
do. You don't have to try to be whatever it is. You don't have to try to be Saturnian in Rick's case,
Well,
or like a Capricorn, that steadiness of a Capricorn. He just is.
the other thing that Rick said earlier is that it's not just how you see the world, it is how the world sees you.
Mhm.
So that vibrance that people see in me in a group is partially their seeing me.
Right, right.
Because I'm not trying to step in and take some sort of lead in everything that I'm doing. That would be exhausting.
Well, one of the things that I can appreciate about a Leo that does Leo well, is what I call it, is that they're so themselves that they give others just that they relax and they can be themselves and be all of themselves.
That's true.
And when you see a Leo ascendant or sun, that's like, oh my gosh, look at me, let's talk about me. You know that it's like this overcompensation that they're doing.
I think of that as more the wounded or lower vibration of a
Yeah,
Leo. I
yeah,
think
yeah.
the higher vibration would say nobody recognizes anyone without contrast. And the beauty of the whole team is celebrating every character in the play.
Yeah.
And I will I will add to this. I find Rick to be a very atypical Leo. When you look at Leo and ego and battle for center stage, etc., it's much more common than it is uncommon. Rick is very much not like a typical Leo, even though he's got Leo rising. So he really
Right.
he really vibrates from the top higher level of Leo. Another thing to mention when I do excuse me, when I do solar arcs, which is how many degrees between this planet, and I'm looking for early days of your life when you had trauma, etc. The ascendant is the main point to look at. The ascendant is known as the area where life enters the body,
Right.
where life enters. And the other one I look at is the bottom, the fourth house. So when I'm looking at solar arcs, I'm looking for any planet near that ascendant, any planet near that bottom of the chart. And I start finding out how many degrees between. And that's oftentimes representative of the person's trauma.
Mm-hmm.
That's good to remember. Yeah. Yeah. So
It can
Rick,
also be, though, um, a bursting forth and a coming out. Because things that go through the 12th house sit with you the entire time it goes through that 12th house journey. And you are thinking in isolation of the energy of that. And by the time it crosses the threshold and into the ascendant, it's out. It's just exploding. So it can be awareness and identity and shift, regardless of what planet you're talking about or sign. And the same could be even said of going through the third house. There's again a connection with the mind. because you're thinking about these things being triggered the whole time that planet's going through the third house, and then it goes to the fourth. That's your psyche. I now know who I am. Another
Mm-hmm.
facet of my
Mm-hmm.
psyche.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, does anybody here have, I don't have everybody's charts, an ascendant that has a double ruler? So who here is
Sag,
Gemini, right? Or
Scorpio.
Gemini rising or a Virgo rising? Okay. So can I ask you, ladies, how do you experience um that that rising, because it's ruling, it's also affecting a couple of houses. So Peggy, what's your rising sign?
Scorpio.
I
And I have,
Oh, okay. I think I understand what you understand. I didn't mean to ask that question, but let's go with it. So you look at your Mars, or do you look at Pluto?
I have Mars and Pluto conjunct in Leo next to
Oh,
my
so then,
midheaven. Yay.
okay. Conjunct in what house?
They're in the ninth house conjunct my midheaven,
Wow.
and they're
Okay.
conjunct each other, and they're conjunct my moon.
Oh, wow.
Well, you
Kind
didn't
of.
want to take any chances being misunderstood.
Mhm.
Let
But
me
I
tell
have
you how it is.
but I have Chiron in my third house, so I do have problem communicating when I was younger and getting my answers and my questions recognized,
Mm-hmm.
and it still can be a problem because I have to watch. The Leo can be too much, and I kind of run roughshod sometimes, and people just go, "You're an idiot. You think you know everything."
Really? It just doesn't
Yeah,
seem like me like that to me, but
That's how Virgos think it is.
right,
well,
right.
I've done
Okay.
it.
It's often not like it is, but it's how they fear.
Yeah,
Perceive.
Yeah.
Right,
yeah.
right,
I have a fear, and I think that's the truth, and you're right, it's not.
right.
But
Um,
you wanted to know how that affected my ascendant, or
well, I wanted to know, so what I was really asking was something else, but
oh,
now since we're going with this question, no, that's okay. I'm glad you, because I was going to ask this eventually.
oh,
So if you have, you know, a sign like Scorpio or Pisces, a rising
Mm.
sign like Pisces, I normally make a rising sign ruled by Jupiter because it's the rising sign. It's a personal planet. Um, but does anybody have a Sag rising here? I'm sorry, Pisces rising. No. Okay.
The general rule is that the outer planets cannot rule a chart. So
Okay.
if you have Pisces rising, you would think Neptune rules your chart, but it does not.
Right.
Your co-ruler rules, and the co-ruler of Pisces, which is the ruler in the old days, which is Jupiter. And if you have Pisces rising, you would think that Neptune rules your chart. It's ruled by Jupiter. If you have Scorpio rising, it's
oh,
not your chart ruled by Pluto. Your chart is ruled by Mars.
yes.
And finally, if it's Aquarius, um, it's not ruled by Uranus, it's ruled by Saturn.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really what I
Trying to roll with.
was trying to roll with. Yeah. My daughter has a Pisces rising, and her Jupiter is at 0. No, it's not 0, but it's in Capricorn, Jupiter and Capricorn in the 11th house. And frankly, the only part of my daughter that I see the Piscean ascendant is that she has trouble with her feet. She has plantar fasciitis. Is that how you say it?
Right.
Yeah. And she's very sensitive, like in her body, like material, sense,
Lo-
really sensitive.
Lotions.
Yeah, all kinds of stuff. I mean, but boy, do I see that chart ruler in Capricorn. That's a she's a very, very good manager. What if your chart ruler squares? What is that? What if
The
your chart
ascendant.
ruler
What
squares your ascendant?
a good question.
It's a great question, and it's one of the things that I was going to get to because it's so key. And I learned this from my friend Rick D, who talked about Arroyo, who is, I was reading one of his books to just today, and I made a note about this. If the planet that rules the ascendant, I'm sorry, if the ascendant squares a planet, there's pressure. There's a lot of there's pressure. It can come off as just that energy is it's not easy for the person to live with. And
It depends on the two planets involved.
But we're
yeah.
talking ascendant, or a square planet, square the ruler. I would think you're dealing with the same two themes:
Mm-hmm.
the sign on the ascendant and the planet of the
Planet.
sign.
Right.
So that tells me that spiritually, there you're leveling up. You're trying to deepen your understanding of that energy. How do I go ahead and really press in? So I would think when you look at Susan, what is that ascendant?
Aquarius,
Aquarius,
square Saturn.
square Saturn.
But
Okay.
Saturn is also conjunct Venus, and so I don't know what to make of that.
Well, I would definitely, just looking at the Saturn square ascendant, to me, that would be how are you looking at what limits your expansion? Aquarius is an expanded view of ideas, an awareness that brings a lot of things from a bird's eye view. So, how do you maintain some sort of focus? Because Saturn has a way of crystallizing things, it creates structure, it brings a solid focus. So, you're looking at a large picture, but you're trying to have a strong focus. There's where you kind of blend those together because there's a tension that you weren't satisfied just having an Aquarian outlook. You wanted to know how to make sense of all these big ideas.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Oh, yeah. I was just looking at your
So
chart.
developing critical thinking skills.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's wonderful to have all kinds of thoughts. Putting them together, that's a different task.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, so Susan, let me ask you this. Do you resonate with that so that does that make sense because you feel
Yeah.
that experience?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Does anybody here have a planet near the ascendant? Peggy.
First house.
Let me call on Linda. Linda, what do you got?
The moon.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
The moon,
Yes.
like practically sitting on top of it.
And
Okay.
what is the ascendant?
Oh, Scorpio.
And the moon is also in Scorpio?
Yep. Yep.
That lends
So,
itself to very deep waters of emotion.
Yep. Yep. Yeah.
And because the moon will also deal with the habits and the way we do things. There will be a lot of things that are intense, intentional, done with purpose with Scorpio, and uh, very intentional. You don't waste your energy.
I mean, I'll say that one thing that has happened over the time that I've worked with Rick D
Mhm.
is that I've come to like identify much more with the Scorpio side of myself. I mean,
Mhm.
it's not that I have anything against being a sun sign Libra, and I have a stellium in Libra in the, mostly 11th house, and that's an interesting thing. Because that Libra gets all smushed in with a bunch of other things. I mean, it's not as clean as you might like it. But that Scorpio part of me is just, eh, Rick once called it like you're on a wild horse. And that's exactly what it feels like a lot of the time. It's like I'm just riding a wild horse. And
You've also got Pluto exactly square to the ascendant itself.
I know it's crazy, isn't it?
And
Oh,
your
well, I'm just
Pluto,
saying those are other reasons
And it's sitting right beside Mars at the top of the chart.
yeah, and it
Yeah.
accentuates your Pluto Scorpio nature.
Right, right.
It's why
yeah,
people don't like to mess with me. Because one of the things that happens with me is if you want to, like, if people, like students, for example, will want to push and test me. And what I always tell them is, okay, if you want to go, let's go. We're gonna I'll throw down with you. We'll get going on this. But you have to understand, you're gonna be tired of messing with me, and I'm not gonna be tired of messing with you.
Yeah,
So, so you
yeah,
might as
yeah.
well just quit now because it's not, we can call a truce and get along together, but and they just laugh, and then that's the end of that. Nobody does. People don't like to mess with me. Yeah.
But
well,
it's
Yeah.
yeah,
I
it's
think too the ninth house connecting with God and spirituality is another way that it emphasizes that Mars Scorpio energy of identity, because that is how you spiritually process. And that would definitely make it easier to identify more of the ascendant than the sun sign.
I think so. I mean, there's parts of me that it's like, if I had to say it, I think it's exactly the opposite for me. I think the Libra is more my mask than than the ascendant. You know,
hmm
that oftentimes I can play the relatively quiet, charming person, but it never lasts for very long because there's going to be some fight to fight, and some wrong to right, and and
right,
then I'm riding to the sound of the
right.
guns, and there we go.
Yeah.
So
And because I mean, that Scorpio is so uh it's very strong because not only is it Scorpio, which is a really strong sign. They don't do, let me just say this to say they've got to be real. So if you really feel like whatever it is how you really feel, you're going to act on it. Like they don't really, it's a very interesting mix you have with a lot of Libra, but then a lot of really um smoldering
I
strong.
have to say that Libra, if you would look, if you would take a novice astrologer, one of the things I would tell them is pay attention to the weight of planets. Uh, Saturn and Jupiter are large planets. If you have something that's in competition, you're trying to see which is going to be more have more of an effect. A Venus might yield to something larger in weight. You've got
Mhm.
Mercury, Saturn, Sun, and Neptune all in Libra. Saturn is karmically showing you have a lot of awareness of fairness and justice. Neptune, you've got these incredible ideals uh, in the Libra. So there is a
And Rick,
lot.
when you talk about fairness, she also has Saturn 1 degree from Eris.
Well, that's the other thing I was going to say. You have the opposition there to your fifth house conjunction, a novice would say you would most likely really resonate more with that Libra as the soul. At least your soul is very strong, but your mask is also equally strong in a different way.
Can I just say my mom had a Sun-Saturn conjunction and in Libra, and she was no gentle Libra. Not even close.
They can be very forceful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's and every time we look at the chart, I see something new. But it's an interesting skin to inhabit. And sometimes when I'm looking at fiction writing and I'm thinking, what's the astrology of this character? What's its sun sign? What's its rising sign? Where are the planets? And it's sometimes really hard to get out of my own skin about it because it's so hard to imagine not being like this.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like not being like this, not having these energies,
Yeah.
So that's
one thing I read today when I was thinking about tonight is, and I really liked it, the ascendant is where we can make a conscious effort and make an impact on our life. So a lot of the other, and it's not to say that we can't, don't misunderstand. The ascendant is very, it's the physical behavior, character, actions, path, the reality. I'm in this house with this wall and this thing right here. So you can, if you do it consciously, or if you're aware enough to make a change for the better, if that's what you choose to do. I have a Taurus rising. I used to be really, really, really bad with money. Really bad with money. And I used to love stuff. I mean, you can't even imagine. And, again, as I have grown up and I've changed, I've taken that same Taurus, but I've applied it to different things. Like, I want to eat really good food. I want to buy really good quality things. I want to enjoy, but it doesn't have to mean to my own sabotage. But it took me a long time to to learn that. So that's another question that I kind of wanted to ask you all. So there's a part of your ascendant that maybe you did, quote unquote, not as well at one point in your life, and that you were different about it now? Or do you have that awareness of it? So, for example, if you're like a Cancer rising or something, they can take everything personally. They can take it, they think, because they're so protective of themselves, right?
I think that used to be me, Claudia. I am a Cancer rising.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I used to be like super, like very sensitive. And I know it's funny, my father's also a Cancer rising too. He's a double Cancer rising and moon.
Yeah.
And I know he was a little bit overly sensitive for a long time as well.
Right.
I think both of us have grown out of it. But yeah, I recognize that, like, oh yeah, it's like, and I used to worry about how people saw me, like, and I would take things really, really personally, worry a lot about it.
Oh, totally.
John, that brings up another interesting thing when you find inherited traits through the family astrologically, because that's your time of birth, that at his time of birth that made those things happen.
Yeah.
So to me, that reinforces this idea that we are spiritual beings and we come in together with these needs to learn and grow. So both your father and you were looking to grow in those spaces. How
Yeah,
do we rationalize that, you know?
I see that, and our degrees are similar too. He's like 12 degrees rising Cancer. I'm 15 degrees rising Cancer. His midheaven is 26 Pisces. Mine is 20, I think 23, 24. So it's interesting all the synchronicities
Right.
between our charts.
So, do you have any aspects to your moon? I feel like I had your chart. I must have at some point, and I can't seem to find it.
Yeah, I'm sure Rick has it, but I can give you all the information. It's 20. So my moon is in a very, very tight trine with my sun. My sun's at 6 degrees and 59 minutes of Taurus. My moon's at 6 degrees and 50 minutes of Capricorn. So can't get any tighter than that. Yeah,
So,
April 27th, 1978, 9:46 a.m. Akron, Ohio.
19 what?
1978.
April 26, 1978. What time?
27. April 27th, 1978, 9:46 a.m.
Okay. Uranus is almost done in your sign.
About time.
Yeah,
Actually, it's been pretty positive, to tell you the truth.
good.
Yeah.
Akron, Ohio. I'm sorry, John, I was not paying attention. What time?
9:46 a.m.
9:40?
9:46. 9:46.
I don't know why it went away, because I know I had it, but I want to look at it. So let's look at it. So, okay.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay. The moon. That's a hard-working fellow.
Rick Diaz told me that too, so and you know.
Oh yeah. And congratulations on your new adventure.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
And that Neptune in Sag in the 6th makes you somebody who's very positively regarded by your coworkers.
I would say that's accurate.
Yeah, you have a vision for the future as well as a willingness to find your humor and share it in the workspace.
That's something I've grown into. I was definitely living out the more serious side of my Capricorn moon for a long time.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so this is actually the other question I wanted to ask the group is, and I'll start with John, is what are some of the things that you appreciate now about your ascendant and how you're expressing it and experiencing it now at this point in your life?
Well, now I actually appreciate the emotional sensitivity.
Yeah.
You know, many of you know I've done a lot of work with emotional intelligence, and so now it's like I understand it's okay to feel my emotions. But before I didn't really like to show them, but they would come out anyway. I don't think I could help but be sensitive as a Cancer rising. So,
right.
Yeah, and I wasn't too happy about that. But I think as I've accepted that aspect of me, it's really become a gift. My girlfriend Susie, who's also on here, by the way, I know one of the things that she shares, and I hope she doesn't mind, but she said she was looking for in a partner someone who's emotionally available, and experience that very often. But with me, she says that she has that experience of me, and it's like, yeah, I can't help but feel my emotions. People generally know like how I feel about them and how I feel about the situation. I might not say it, but it's very hard for me to hide it.
Right.
It's going to come out one way or
Yeah, that's awesome because you're doing that moon stuff much better in a
Yeah.
way that is not uh you're not playing games with yourself anymore.
No, definitely not. It's been a journey though, Claudia, for sure.
It's interesting too that you have that Eris Mercury connection in the 10th house, because that speaks of bringing communication to areas of injustice, and what and where emotional intelligence is tested is where we feel pain. So to have the Mercury capacity to express the Arisian outrage over injustice, and in a public space, being able to be transparent, be an example to other men, be a teacher, that's incredibly powerful and important in our culture because it is a
Oh
missing
my gosh.
component.
Yes. Yes.
I work with that a lot because I have a strong compassion for the struggles of men, and um, you could actually find yourself very useful with suicide prevention with men because they need skills you rock.
Thank you, Rick. Yeah, I think I really struggled because you know that I know you both see, and all of you see the Pluto sitting at in my
Mhm.
fourth house opposite both of those. I think that's
Sure.
something I struggled with, though. I feel like I'm coming into something there, but I know, again, Rick D has said, like, it's almost like I run everything through multiple filters before I even get to the point of like actually saying what I want to say, though. And I think that's something that I've been coming into, to actually like not being afraid to say what needs to be said. It's almost like I'm afraid of my power, that it's gonna resonate too strongly when I say it. So I've been overly cautious and careful, but I think I'm starting to step into a little bit more confidence around that now.
Do you think Uranus has this Uranus in your sun sign has helped you with that?
Yeah, there are times like when it's been active, especially like during the past several years that's been in Taurus. I think it has. That's a good question, Claudia. I think it has opened up some things, and it has like enabled me to be like just feel a lot more just like I'm just gonna say it. I don't
Yeah,
care what people say. I'm just
right.
gonna I gotta like let it out. I gotta say what I want to say in the situation. So I think I
It's
definitely.
good. And you should because if you don't, that's when you get in trouble.
Yeah. Can't suppress it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank
That
you, Bo.
that was one thing I
Sure.
wanted to mention too. Well, we probably did touch on it was so somebody like Rick D is a double Capricorn, right? So you think, you know, very uh what is the word? Um, when you want to be careful.
Sure.
You know,
Cautious,
the
cautious.
discerning and cautious. Uh, Capricorn is not known to, fly off the handle or do crazy stuff. But remember when we talked about the influence of these other planets, but he's got Uranus across the ascendant and descendant axis. So he can kind of just do what he wants and say what he wants. And it's not, in other words, this is such a perfect example of yes, he is, you know, does feel that Capricorn. I'm sure he does, but there's this side of him that's just always going to be just kind of letting it loose and being himself because he can't help it and he's not going to hold back.
Well, I think too there are certain things about a sun conjunct ascendant that is such an epitome of holding certain identities with that sign.
Mm-hmm.
So that as a Capricorn, I'm sure Rick has seen other Capricorns that, yeah, you're Capricorn, but you don't have that strength of really just oozing it, you know? Rick exudes the Capricorn, and I have a strong connection to the Leo. It's just that my expression of Leo is different. I enjoy celebrating all the players, you know? I like coaching people the way, and Leo is fond of children, and the Lion of the Pride looks out for safety issues and always looking out for the sake of the pride, you know?
Yeah. Oh yeah. So let me ask Rick D, how do you experience your ascendant, even though it's the same? You must have a sense of it.
To be honest with you, I don't sense. I don't have any idea where to even start sensing because they're both there together, and
Yeah.
I've never been able to separate them. So I really can't answer the question.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it would take a really heavy study for him to look at just Capricorn ascendant people
Yeah,
and just Capricorn sun people.
I don't know
And
where one starts and the other one ends.
Yes,
right.
yes, yes,
Don't
yes.
know, and I
Right.
don't really have much choice. So there you go.
Yeah. It's not, I don't know a lot of people with a double. You guys are really probably the only people I know with double anything personally, with
Mhm.
double.
You're born
Double.
new moon. You're born a new moon at sunrise.
Yes. Susie says
No,
she does.
you're born at sunrise. That's right. Not the new
Right.
moon.
My son is Scorpio. I say what's on my mind all the time. Well, that's good, Susie. Don't hold back. Yeah. Uh,
You had
like,
some other thoughts in your uh, outline thought plans. I'm wondering, have we missed any of that?
um, I think I'm,
Oh, how about this? What have we learned through our ascendant or the ruler of the ascendant?
oh my gosh. Talk, yeah, that's a good one.
I'll volunteer on that one. I have learned that the Leo is big on the creative expression and helping people to find their um, outlet. I'm very supportive of creativity.
Mhm.
I like I look for anything that looks like it's going to benefit from that fifth house.
Yeah.
Uh, you would therapeutically help yourself if you'll engage in some sort of creative outlet, and that's something I very much feel is helped by my Leo connection.
Yeah. Yeah.
So things with the Tarian. Have you learned how you can guide people and appreciate the value of using your voice to affirm your values and stand up when you come into partnership? Because that's where it's tested.
Yeah. I'm just learning that. I'm just learning that using my voice and which is a kind of it's hard because I am a Leo and I basically want to be up on the mountain talking about doing what I want and dancing and singing. But part of that has been, for me, it's been about self-worth. I mean, I think that's a story we could all probably share,
Sure, sure.
but really, it's really been self-worth, 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 big time.
That's that's a Tarian thing.
And accepting myself exactly, perfectly, beautifully as I am. And one of the things that I like about the way I'm using the way I'm seeing the Taurus lately is that, I've talked about how I'm learning this, I'm in this meditation certification program. And I tend to be I have a lot of nervous energy and I'm anxious. And that has really brought me in a really wonderful way, in this groundedness that I needed so much. And I want to be that, that, that groundedness, and eventually teach it to other people. Because if I can get, really centered, anybody can, because I've been like a hummingbird.
Renate has her hand up if we can
Yes, please.
hear her experience. You're muted still. There you
Yeah,
go.
I would like to share what I learned from my rising. My rising
Good.
sun is in Virgo and midheaven. So and with Chiron in the 10th house, I always was completely afraid to talk more than 3-4 persons. Right? Now I love to talk, especially in Zoom groups. And I found out I have to say something, and I love to say something now. And I'm still a little bit afraid if what do they think about me, but more and more, I just don't care. I have to, and it gives me power, some power. I love it really. Yeah.
Yes.
So that's what I really learned about my rising sign.
I suspect that power is self affirmation, because when you can affirm yourself, you don't care who's taking away.
Yeah.
You will go ahead and trust yourself more. That's fantastic, Renate.
Yeah.
Virgo is a very tough energy. It's a very tough energy to get past because it just can't stop correcting.
Right.
Even when there's nothing to correct, it thinks there isn't. And it's a tough
Yeah.
agreement to get past.
Yeah.
So you're doing fabulous. That's wonderful. Thank you for that.
Mm.
What about you, Susie? What have you learned from your ascendant?
You're muted. You could unmute.
Well, I'm a Taurus rising.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. I just learned that what you said about the Neptune or Uranus. Which one? Uranus.
Uranus,
Oh, Uranus had this nice long path through
7 years
Taurus.
worth.
Oh, right.
7 years worth.
Uh huh.
Yeah. So I don't
And that
really
would have
know how.
awakened you.
Okay.
And,
I don't know.
I'll also say Taurus helps you with the expression of your will, because your voice comes from your will is expressed through your voice. The throat chakra, the will, the voice. So,
Yeah, that's how I heal myself, is by speaking things out. That's what I've noticed. Once I speak it, I'm done. I've moved on. And there's power in that release for me.
Yeah.
But I don't really know, I mean,
well, that's the human
about Taurus
condition.
rising.
That's the human condition. You, as the Taurus rising, needed to internalize and be aware of it. So you're rocking that capacity to release yourself through your voice. Not everybody does that. There are a lot of repressed people who do not have the courage to speak the words. Oh, they can go ahead down the road after the conversation's over and think, oh, I should have said this, you know. But to go ahead and have the words and say, I'm going to say it, they're going to hear me.
Yeah.
John, what was it that I think that I'm like that, speaking of passing things down, because of my father, who had like what, 4 or 5 planets
He's
in Leo.
So everybody, so Susie's my girlfriend.
Yeah.
Yeah, her father is like a sextuple Leo. He's got like Sun, Pluto, Saturn, Moon, a bunch of things in Leo. But yeah, he's got a lot. So there's a lot of influences there. Susie is a 25-degree rising Taurus, so she's had Uranus right on her ascendant.
Yeah.
And so she's under a lot of just.
Oh, so she's double Taurus too.
No, she's a Scorpio sun.
Scorpio
Scorpios,
sun.
yeah.
Oh,
She looks like a Taurus though, doesn't she?
yeah,
I can't tell, but
yeah,
I'm not surprised it's a Scorpio because the depth of intelligence.
Moon in Sagittarius.
Well, that's real good.
Oh,
Moon and,
nice.
Moon and Sag is just really nice thing. It's like a salve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Conjunct Neptune.
It's a nice thing to have. Get you out of a lot of trouble.
Or gives you a few people to share the trouble with because they're laughing at the same jokes.
Yep.
Sag just doesn't care if it's welcomed or not, and because of that, it's okay.
Right. Yeah. That's great. Thank you, Susie.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard, Susie.
Thanks.
Yes. That's right. Peggy, what have you learned from your ascendant?
I don't know. I think Uranus has been going over my descendant, and I think now, and I don't have to work anymore. I know I say that a lot. And I think a lot of my problems were interacting with people at work, and I find not having to work makes me free. I just don't feel the same anymore. I don't feel limited. I don't feel that I'm striving for stuff that I don't really want to strive for, but I have to, so I
Right.
can, you know, have a retirement and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So all my life has been like, oh God, I got to do this. I don't want to do this, but I have to do this.
Yeah.
And then I retired and Uranus came along and everything just got easier. And I can be myself and I can let my Leo through, I can let my Virgo through. And I'm just very relaxed and I'm not an uptight Scorpio type person. I'm just more mellow and I can be the eagle instead of the lower part of the Scorpio. I can be the higher part and
Nice.
help people and get out of my way and let them, you know, be happy and help them and be happy with them.
Right.
So I mean, I really, it's just like
That's
Phoenix
wonderful.
rising out of the ashes.
Yes.
That's how I
Yes.
feel. So I hope it keeps going further and further, and I can do stuff like you are meditating and reach the different levels other than human, you know, like you
Yeah.
said, meat sack, more spiritual stuff.
Yeah.
Because that Scorpio can rise way far. So that's
Yes.
sort of how I feel. It's working out, and this group has been very helpful with all your thoughts and knowledge.
Likewise. Seriously, you guys help. We help each other, and just being
Yes.
here among you is helpful to me. And that's just amazing. It's just wonderful. I heard somebody say the other day, astrology is meant to be done in a group. It's a group thing. Whether that's true or not, I think this group is beyond astrology. And Rick has brought astrology to us and we learned so much, but ultimately it's such a spiritual place, a spiritual watering hole for all of us. And that's wonderful. Peggy, it's wonderful.
What
It's
I find, what I find is we're all not that much different.
yeah.
We're just not that much different. And each of us we really don't have that many things to say that's that outrageous.
Well, that could be because of associating with people who are actually trying to pursue their own souls responsibly. There are people out there that don't.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
they
that's right. That's right.
They can be hard to navigate.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't think that's true here.
No.
Right. Right.
No, there's an openness and that just the willingness, just a little bit of openness. It's amazing.
I worked hard in this group for years because I knew that there was a needle in me that was pointing towards teach more spirituality, teach more astrology. And the needle always went back to astrology, always. I got to a point after about 6 years, we're in our seventh now. After about 6 years, I just got tired of it and I just gave it up to God and I just said, I don't know how to shift this group. I know it needs to shift towards more spirit, but I didn't know how to do it. So I just gave it to him. And you'll notice that was about a year ago. And about during that year, is when everybody else started talking more, when we started unmuting ourselves more, when we all started to feel more comfortable, when I started to share the hosting with other people. So it all just kind of loosened up by itself. And that's a credit to the kind of people that are here.
Thank you.
Yeah. And to you, yeah, for allowing, for putting us together.
It was a beautiful thing you did.
Thank you, Rick.
Yeah.
I had the right situation with the right people. And if you look at the older episodes, you'll see a lot of different souls went through this group, and some didn't stick, and some did.
Yeah.
Which reminds me, Claudia, we need to hear from Erica.
Yes, we sure do.
And from Susan. And from Caroline and Christine.
Yes.
If we can see them, yes.
Yes. So, Erica, tell us how your ascendant has helped you. Or, no, I'm sorry, what you've learned from your ascendant.
Well, my ascendant is Libra, and I'm a Taurus, so that's kind of double Venus, right?
Right.
And, I see a lot of this as kind of a growing up experience, the way you experience your rising sign as you're a kid, and then, teenager, and then the young adult, and growing up and maturing. So I was kind of shy as a kid growing up, even though I've got Moon in Leo and, a lot of things like that. But I didn't have a very big family or a lot of connections in the neighborhood. I didn't have a lot of friends or anything like that because we were immigrants and all this, various type of stuff, speaking a different language. Trying to be accepted in the community, going to different schools. So I think my Libra rising was more like I was trying to fit in and trying to see what a person needed to do to please other people, to be popular, or even to have friends, or to connect and all that sort of thing. But then as I got older, I feel like I learned a lot of skills. Plus, being very interested in people, I learned a lot about people. So then I can use my Libra rising as a way to help connect with other people, to help them, like in my work, or bring them out. When I'm meeting someone or something like that, because I became a lot more, I gained a lot of confidence from, going through a lot of different situations and surviving them and all that. It's like, what the hell, this is just what everybody does, right? We all go through stuff.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to say a couple things about ascendant. I've heard that it's like the front door to your house, and your sun sign is your home, your house. You know, like your purpose in life and your front door is the way that other people see you, the way you see yourself, um, kind of your initial uh, energy, the way that you express yourself, the way you dress yourself, the way you paint the front door or you let it get shabby and beat up or whatever it is. And you can change it over time. You can say, oh, you know, that front door doesn't match my house. You know, my house is in good shape, but I haven't done anything. I've let the door go to hell, or I've let the weather, you know, weather the door, and it doesn't really reflect me. Or the color, you know, the color is not
right.
something that's attracting people. Or, you know, if you're putting your house up for sale, you know, they talk about curb, what is it,
Appeal.
curb appeal. So that's also kind of how I look at the ascendant, and that's how I've experienced my ascendant.
Yeah.
Over time.
Right. Thank
So
you.
thank you for asking.
Yeah.
And now Susan is on.
I'm curious if anybody has ever noticed the connections they make with people that have sun signs the same as their ascendant.
That's what I got, but I can't tell you the difference.
I'm married to a Libran.
Okay.
But that's about the only one. I don't know that many Librans. Oh, his brother is a Libran too.
I don't know that. I don't know. But I do have to say, and I've heard this before, whatever that is, if it's a close relationship, you know, a good friend, a family, a spouse, whatever it is, this could be such a sticky, a glue. Not necessarily lasting 50 years, but it's like, it's a connection. It's a personal connection. But I've also heard that people can be competitive with the sign of their rising sign, which I don't really feel like that, but I don't know, maybe it depends on the person. What about you?
Myself?
Yeah.
Christine, down in the lower left side of your video, if you put your arrow down on the lower left, it should highlight an area that says stop video, and it should also say start video. You can try clicking there. She's trying to figure out how to get her video on.
Yeah, it's right
It looks
beside
like a
your
movie
microphone.
camera. Like an old-fashioned movie camera, second
Claudia,
frame.
I can make myself host again and try to do it for her.
Okay. Yeah, because I think Caroline's on her phone.
Well,
Okay,
it's
this is
Christine.
Christine.
Oh, Christine, I'm sorry.
Asked to start video. Okay. I just asked you to start your video. You should have a box pop up and ask you that question.
And it's right beside your audio button. It's the one to the side of the audio.
Yeah, it'd be a treat to see you, yes. Can you hear us, Christine? Huh. Oh, well. We will continue to try. It's been a very intriguing evening. Just like I thought, we would get many multifarious examples of rising signs. It's interesting to see what it means to most people, and most people seem tonight to be very in close ownership with their rising sign.
I actually have 5 other people in my charts that are in my personal life that have the same, not just the same ascendant, the house overlay within just a couple degrees, and sometimes the exact same ones.
Wow.
That I find that amazing.
Yeah.
Is that
I
your
never expected it.
is that your family or just people?
No, they are not family members. They are
Oh,
souls that I'm very close. I either have a good friendship with them or I have a strong affinity with their character that I hold them in high regard.
it's a soul group. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They came
Yeah.
through. You all came through together. Oh, nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, everybody, thank you very much. And thank you to our co-hosts, Rick and Claudia, for
Thank
chipping
you
in.
so
That really
much.
helps. I'm glad everybody got involved and got things off their chest and said what you had to say. And we'll just continue our exploration of these different matters until we get it all figured out.
That's
Woohoo!
right.
Okay,
Oh,
everybody?
we might have to go over 400 episodes.
Well, we may have to. This is
Thank
this
you
is
for your good news.
Yeah, thank you
That's very good to hear, Rick.
very much. Thank you very
That's
much.
wonderful. I'm
This
so
is
glad to hear it.
Thank you. This is
Yeah.
395. So we're approaching 400. Good night, everybody.
Good night, Rick. Good
Good
night,
night,
Claudia.
Rick. Good night, all.
Claudia.
Many blessings to
Bye.
everyone. Much love.